Hello Blazers, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian. How you guys doing today? Welcome to a brand new video. In today's video guys, we're doing yet another Russian Q&A. I went to my Instagram and asked you guys to ask me any sort of questions you have to me or any sort of questions about Russia, and I'm gonna be responding to the best ones in this video. I'm out of breath from that one. As always guys, if you want your question to be in the next one, then make sure to follow my Instagram and be on the lookout for when I do this next time. Let's get right into it. What is the best quick food or snack to buy on the street in Russia? Great question. Definitely the best quick food, street food or snack you can buy in Russia on the Russian streets is shawarma, or as we call it in Russian, shawarma. Shawarma originally is a Middle Eastern food, but it's also a food that's very popular with the people of like the Caucasus region and also Central Asia. And since Russia has a lot of people from Central Asia and from the Caucasus, they have opened up a lot of businesses here, and shawarma has become a staple in Russian street food. You know, no matter what the inflation is or whatever, no matter how much the dollar is, the shawarma pretty much always stays the same. It's 120 rubles. That is the golden standard across the entirety of Russia. For 120 rubles, you get yourself a nice sort of a foot long like this, filled with chicken meats and vegetables, and all encased in a beautiful lavash. Shawarma is usually sold in these stalls that are just like on every bus stop essentially, or just in random places, and a lot of the times they love to do this, which is just flipping the McDonald's Arches logo on top, because then it looks like the letter sh in Russian, and the shawarma logo is literally just McDonald's turned around. It's kind of genius. It's not even like everybody's doing this. I don't know how this is not a copyright violation, but yeah, shawarma is definitely the best street food to get in Russia. I should probably make a review on it or something. How powerful is the contemporary Communist Party in the Russian Federation? I would say not much. When we talk about politics in Russia, you need to understand that Russia is not a one-party system like China, for example, right? But it kind of is. Look, in the parliament and in the governments, there's multiple parties, and the main ones are basically Единая Россия, United Russia, which is the ruling party. It is the party of Putin and stuff. Then there's also LDPR, which is the Liberal Democratic Party of Russia, which is not that liberal and not that democratic. Then there's also the Communist Party of Russia, Справедливая Россия, which is like just Russia, whatever, and some other ones that are just even more irrelevant. Basically, you need to understand that this is something that's called controlled opposition. All these parties, like the Communist Party and, for example, the LDPR, technically they're in opposition to United Russia, but yet they're system opposition. They barely actually criticize the governments or the president. I'm not saying they don't do anything. There is a bit of political power struggle in that, but these oppositional parties that sort of the government and Putin allows to exist because they don't pose any real threat. So, for example, if you take somebody like Alexei Navalny, for example, you know, the Russian oppositional leader, he tried to get his party registered and they just refused to register it for him, because if his party actually gets registered, it might pose a real threat and danger to Putin and, you know, the regime. So therefore, I would say that the contemporary Russian Communist Party is not very, very influential. It's just kind of there to be like a pawn in the grand scheme of things of, you know, everything that's going on right now. And it's not like the Communist Party in Russia could possibly take power at any point. What do you have to do in order to visit Western countries as a Russian citizen? Great question. Not everybody really realizes this, but being a citizen of a country within the European Union, or being an American citizen, for example, or a UK citizen, is a huge privilege when it comes to traveling that Russians just don't have, because Russia doesn't have that great of visa relations with other countries. There's actually a great website that shows like which countries have the most powerful passports, in a sense that if you hold that country's passport, you can visit, you know, a whole ton of countries without needing a visa, without, you know, needing to get one. And Russia is way down on that list. European Union not visa free, America not visa free, UK not visa free, you know, pretty much any country of the Western world, let's say, not visa free. And especially for like an American visa, to get it as a Russian, you need to try really hard, and a lot of people get their visas refused. So yeah, to answer your question, to visit Western countries as a Russian citizen is a pretty big hassle, and yeah, it sucks. Let's get to a whole bunch of questions here, which I would like to group in a topic of, is Russia cheap, and is everything in Russia cheap, and is it cheap to live in Russia? This person right here asks, why do Russians care so much about the USD versus the ruble? If you're spending within Russia, why does it matter? Oh, you're so naive, my man. You need to realize, right, that Russia buys the majority of everything we have, right? We don't really have a strong tech industry, or we don't really have much of strong anything. We have a pretty good agriculture industry as far as that goes, but you need to understand that if there's devaluation, if the Russian ruble sort of loses its value, you know, compared to the dollar, that means that everything becomes more expensive. Most of the food products, especially like stuff like tech products, etc. I mean, let's put it this way. So imagine, you are a Russian guy who makes, let's say, 40,000 rubles per month. You want to buy a phone that costs $1,000, okay? So right now the Russian ruble is, what is it actually? It's like in terrible state right now. 77 rubles. This is horrible. This is fucking horrible, man. So that means that right now you have to pay 77,000 rubles for a $1,000 phone, right? Actually, it's gonna be even more because there's like added tax and everything. It's probably gonna round up to about 90,000 rubles for you, to be honest. But just like 2 years ago, for example, the dollar was like 64 rubles. So you would pay not 77,000 but 64,000 for that phone that costs $1,000. And if we take it all the way back to 2013, 2014, you would have paid like 35,000 rubles for a $1,000 phone because $1 was like 35 rubles or whatever. You know what I mean? Essentially what this means is that the Russian people earn the same amount of money, but the amount of stuff they can buy decreases rapidly because their money starts just being nothing. It just starts costing nothing. And that is the exact reason why most of the people in Russia get poorer and poorer and poorer by the year, because the salaries don't really increase, and not only that, but the ruble also falls in relation to the dollar, and therefore they cannot afford literally anything because their money is worth nothing, and they cannot travel, they cannot do anything. It's an absolutely terrible situation. So yes, to answer your question, that is why Russians care about the USD versus the ruble so much. It's because we literally buy everything, and if your ruble is nothing, if it costs nothing, you cannot buy anything. In relation to this question as well, if everything is so cheap in Russia, can wealthy people just move and live there? This is a pretty common misconception that I need to address. A lot of people, you know, leave comments like this under my videos whenever I mention any like cheap prices in Russia, like, you know, my apartment being like $200 per month or whatever. I mean, if you're talking about wealthy people that got like millions saved up and they're not gonna work a day in their life anymore, yeah, sure, they can move to Russia. I mean, a ton of Western stars actually have done it, like people like Gerard Depardieu, Steven Seagal. I mean, they've literally just moved to Russia and got Russian citizenships, like honorary Russian citizenships, just to evade taxes in their original country. So if that's the case, yes, but if you're actually planning to move to Russia and you think you'll be making the same amount of money here that you are in like your country of origin, like US, Canada, whatever, and then live like a king and spend like only $200 per month per rent, that's not what's gonna happen. It's not. Because everybody needs to realize, when I'm saying that my apartment in Chelyabinsk costs $200 per month per rent, it doesn't mean that the people here make the same amount as people like in the US or Canada do, for example. No, we don't. Most people make like $400, $500 a month, so that is like half their paycheck, okay? Rent isn't ridiculously cheap in Russia. It's the same exact capitalist society, you know. Rent also takes up half of people's earnings usually, so it's exactly the same. So if you think if you move to Russia you're gonna be suddenly living like a king, and real estate is just so ridiculously cheap here, it's not. It's as bullshit as in any other place in the world. And I guess the next question, which is also kind of related, is how are Russians able to afford Western brands if they only make $300 to $400 a month? The answer is they can't. I mean, those that can afford Western brands probably make more than that. I mean, for the longest time ever, my parents made the same amount of money, and they pretty much still do right now. When I was a kid, I obviously didn't have my own money. My parents would dress me. I wasn't dressed in like designer or anything, obviously, but there was some Western stuff. But you know, I never had a single item of brand clothing. I don't think. I didn't even have like a Tommy Hilfiger, which is like a mid-tier brand. That would be too expensive for like my parents to dress me when I was a kid. Most Russians have no drip because they have no money. You know, most Russians cannot afford this stuff. The majority of Russians shop in fast fashion stores like Zara and H&M or whatever, and a lot of Russians cannot even afford Zara or H&M, so they go to like flea markets and stuff. I'm not even kidding right now, like buying fake clothing and stuff, because for a lot of Russians, it's actually pretty expensive to even buy like Zara or H&M or whatever. So yeah, to answer your question, how are they able to afford Western brands? Well, they can't. Is there some rivalry between people from different parts of Russia? Yes, there is a rivalry, first of all, between like St. Petersburg and Moscow, you know, which is like the more important city, the coolest city, you know. But the majority of it comes down to the fact that 99% of Russians hate Moscow. This is just absolute truth right now. I'm speaking facts. If you talk to any sort of Russian from like, you know, where I live, from like any provincial area, from a village, if you ask them about Moscow, they're like, we fucking fucking hate Moscow. They're sucking all of our money, you know. They only spend money on themselves. No money is going to the regions, to the provinces of Russia. You know, all Moscow people, you know, Moscovians are entitled brats who just swimming in money. You know what I mean? And it's partly true because Russia definitely does spend most of its money in Moscow, hence why Moscow is so dripped out. But, you know, not everybody in Moscow is like super rich or isn't struggling. People are struggling there, just like they are in the provinces, maybe even more sometimes. But yeah, that's definitely one thing I can point out, is that most of Russians just fucking hate Moscow. That's a fact. That's an absolute fact right there. Do the majority of younger people, 18 to 25, want to stay in Russia or move to European Union or the US? I feel like the majority of the people are throwing the idea out there. I would say, you know, the majority of the younger people in that sort of age range right now are very anti-government, you know, very oppositionally minded. So a lot of them are, you know, very unhappy with what is going on in the country. However, I feel like only a small minority will actually do it and actually move away from the country, because a lot of the people are actually trying to stay and trying to, you know, enact some change. But the idea of moving to America or the European Union from Russia is definitely out there in the air. I mean, I'm not even bringing it up most of the time. I don't really even like to talk about it or whatever, but pretty much, actually, maybe every single Russian person of my age I've ever talked to on a deeper level, they're always like joking about, let's move from this, you know, terrible country, let's, you know, get away, you know, this is terrible, whatever. You know, people are always throwing out these phrases like, oh, we just have to fuck off and, you know, there's nothing in this country for us, you know, that type of thing. People always talk about it. People always like joke about it and kind of throw it out there. But that does not mean, of course, that the majority of people are gonna do it, but definitely, you know, it's a common thing to think about and to talk about. And that's pretty sad that we're in that kind of situation where people have to think that, and where an entire generation just like is very unhappy with the country they live in. You know what I mean? It's really unfortunate. Anyways, guys, I guess that is going to be pretty much it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Hopefully I responded to something interesting. If you guys did enjoy today's video, please make sure to slap the like button in it, and as well, guys, make sure to, you know, go down to the link to the description to my Patreon, donate to it. I would gladly appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.